The sunlight spilled into my kitchen that morning, soft and golden, wrapping everything in a kind of glow that felt like a promise. My wedding was just weeks away, and every day felt like a step closer to forever. I was barefoot, dancing around the kitchen with a cup of coffee in one hand and a bundle of sample bouquets in the other. It was the life I had always dreamed about, the kind I used to whisper about late at night with Camilla during our school years. She was always the first person I pictured standing beside me when that day came. And now, she really was. My maid of honor, my best friend, my rock. Camilla had been there through everything. Every fitting, every flower choice, every moment I questioned if the centerpieces were too much or not enough. She'd just smile and say, "You're going to be the most stunning bride, Jules." And I believed her, because she always knew exactly what to say. She never seemed tired, never annoyed, just perfectly supportive like some kind of bridal fairy godmother. I used to think I was so lucky to have her. Honestly, I probably said it out loud 100 times. What would I do without you, Cam? But looking back now, I remember these flickers, tiny moments that didn't make sense until later. Like the way her voice would catch just slightly when I showed her a picture of me and Ethan at the venue. Or the tight smile she gave when I told her he had surprised me with a weekend getaway to celebrate the final guest list. I chalked it up to stress or bad sleep. Never once did I stop to think that underneath her compliments, something darker might be growing. That maybe not every kind word was said with love. That morning, though, none of that was on my radar. I was just a woman in love, sipping coffee, feeling grateful, and texting my fiancé a silly meme about cold feet. He replied with a heart. Everything felt light, warm, safe. I had no idea that while I was planning the happiest day of my life, someone else was quietly rewriting my story behind the scenes. And I certainly didn't expect that the next message I'd get would bring everything crashing down. Camilla came over later that day, just like she always did. She let herself in with the spare key I'd given her years ago, back when we swore nothing would ever come between us. "I brought croissants and that ginger tea you love," she said with a bright smile, placing everything on the counter like she lived there. I remember laughing, telling her she was spoiling me, and she just shrugged. "You deserve to be spoiled, Jules." It felt sweet at the time, but now I can't help but wonder if she said it like someone watching a show that wasn't hers to star in. We curled up on the couch, scrolling through table settings and giggling about our old high school crushes. She asked how Ethan was, and I told her he'd been a little distant. Nothing serious, probably just work stress. She nodded too quickly. "Men always get weird before the big day," she said, then changed the subject. I didn't think much of it, but if I had looked closer, I might have noticed the way her eyes flicked toward my phone every time it buzzed. Or how she offered, just so casually, to help answer texts if I was feeling overwhelmed. That night, I fell asleep early. Planning a wedding takes it out of you. I left my phone charging in the kitchen, totally drained after hours of decision-making and Pinterest boards. I remember feeling a strange kind of peace, like everything was finally coming together. Ethan and I had barely argued during the whole planning process. If anything, it had made us stronger. And with Camilla handling so much of the logistics, I could finally breathe. I trusted her with everything. My schedule, my phone, my heart. It never even crossed my mind that trust could be a weapon. The next morning, I woke up to silence. No good morning text, no heart emoji. Just a single message from Ethan. "I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry." I stared at the screen, frozen, reading it over and over as if the words might change. My stomach dropped, my ears rang, my fingers trembled as I tried calling him. Once, twice, 5 times. No answer. I had no idea what had happened. But what I didn't know in that moment was this. I hadn't been dumped. I'd been sabotaged. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone still in my hand, trying to make sense of what just happened. A part of me thought maybe it was a mistake, a butt dial, a message meant for someone else, anything but real. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't get a full breath. I kept rereading the words, looking for clues, cracks, some hint of why everything had changed overnight. And then came the silence. No reply. No explanation. Just me, alone in my room, on what should have been a normal morning in the middle of my fairy tale. When Camilla arrived later, I was still in pajamas, eyes swollen, heart shattered. She rushed to me like she had no idea. "Jules, what happened? You look like you've seen a ghost." I handed her my phone and watched her read the message. Her face twisted, just for a second, before she pulled me into a hug. "I'm so sorry. He doesn't deserve you." And I broke. I cried into her shoulder, thinking she was the only person I could lean on. The irony of it all didn't hit me until much, much later. She stayed the whole day, wiping my tears, bringing tissues, making tea. She even offered to call my mom and cancel the florist appointment we had that afternoon. I remember thinking, thank God for Camilla. I told her everything. Every thought, every doubt, every aching hope that maybe there was still an explanation coming. She listened, wide-eyed, nodding, saying all the right things. But behind her gentle voice, something lurked. I didn't see it then. I only felt grateful for the one person who stayed when my world was falling apart. I thought I'd lost the love of my life. I didn't know I was standing beside the person who took him from me. The person I trusted more than anyone. The same hands that zipped me into my dress fittings were the ones rewriting my future without asking. I didn't question her presence, not once. Not even when her comfort felt a little too rehearsed. Not even when she deleted a few texts from my phone saying, "You don't need to torture yourself reading those." And just like that, the perfect friend was already cleaning up a mess I didn't know she made. The next few days were a blur. I didn't eat much, didn't sleep at all. I'd wake up with my phone clutched in my hand, hoping I had missed a call, a message, something that would undo everything. But there was nothing. No word from Ethan. No apology. Just the echo of that single, devastating text. It felt like trying to stand in quicksand, every movement pulling me deeper. I couldn't understand how something so perfect had unraveled so suddenly, so completely. Camilla was there for every minute of it. She sat on the couch while I cried, brought me water, and told me not to blame myself. "Maybe he just panicked," she'd say. Or, "Some men aren't strong enough to handle a good woman." I wanted to believe her. Her words felt like a rope thrown down to someone drowning. I clung to them, not knowing the hand that threw them was the same one that pushed me over the edge in the first place. She even suggested I delete his number. "You need to start fresh," she whispered, like she truly cared. But deep inside, something didn't sit right. It wasn't just the silence from Ethan. It was the silence between my questions and Camilla's answers. The way she always had a new theory, a reason why he wasn't worth my time, a way to spin it so I was the lucky one. She said things like, "Maybe it just wasn't meant to be," and I'd nod, because I didn't have the strength to argue. But those words stayed with me. They didn't comfort me. They itched. They scratched at something inside me that hadn't woken up yet. I kept replaying our last week together, the last real moment I had with Ethan. He had been kind, present, even excited about the honeymoon plans. We talked about the playlist for the wedding dinner. He made a dumb joke about dancing with my aunt. There was no sign of cold feet, no sign of pulling away. So how had things turned on a dime? How did I go from choosing cake flavors to crying into Camilla's hoodie in a matter of hours? I kept asking myself what I did wrong. What I never asked was who did me wrong. Camilla started handling things before I even had the strength to ask. She called the caterer, emailed the photographer, even dropped off the wedding favors at a local shelter. Everyone said how amazing she was, how lucky I was to have her, and I believed them. When you're heartbroken, you look for lifelines, and she was everywhere at once, smiling softly, touching my shoulder at the right moment, pouring wine when I refused to eat. She played the part so perfectly, I never thought to read between the lines. I remember this one night, probably 3 or 4 days after the breakup, when I couldn't stop crying. I was lying on the floor in my bedroom, clutching a framed photo of me and Ethan from our engagement shoot. Camilla sat beside me, brushing the hair out of my face like she had done since we were teenagers. "He gave up too easily," she said, almost like it hurt her to say it. "You deserve someone who'll fight for you." And the way she looked at me with those wide, sympathetic eyes, I thought she was hurting too. I was wrong. Every time I tried to reach out to Ethan again, Camilla gently steered me away. "Don't give him the satisfaction," she'd say. Or, "He made his choice, Jules. Don't beg." And I listened. I let her be the voice in my ear because mine was too broken to speak. Looking back, I see how well she timed everything, how quickly she shut down any flicker of doubt I had, how carefully she controlled the narrative. She wasn't just comforting me, she was isolating me, one phrase at a time. And still, I told her everything. I told her about the dreams I'd been having, of walking down the aisle alone, of Ethan turning away at the altar. I told her how I felt like I was floating outside my own body, watching this disaster unfold like it was happening to someone else. She listened, nodding, tucking blankets around me like I was her child. She said, "Maybe it's the universe protecting you." And I cried harder because it almost sounded like love. But that wasn't love. That was the softest kind of cruelty. The kind that wears your favorite hoodie and whispers while it poisons you. One afternoon, I opened my text just to torture myself, to reread what Ethan had said, hoping I'd find something new in his words. But something was off. A few messages I thought I'd sent weren't there anymore, and some felt unfamiliar, like I was reading someone else's tone. I brushed it off, thinking maybe I was losing my grip on time, on memory. Grief does that. Still, I found myself scrolling through old threads, screenshots, even emails, chasing clarity that refused to come. Camilla caught me once and gently took the phone from my hands. "You're only hurting yourself," she said. And I let her take it. She had taken so much already. My schedule, my phone, my confidence, all wrapped in concern and affection, and I kept letting her, believing she was protecting me. I even thanked her, over and over, for saving me from myself. The idea that she could be the one I needed saving from? That wasn't even a seed in my mind yet. Because that's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't hit you like a slap. It seeps in slowly like cold water down your back, and by the time you feel it, you're already soaked. I started feeling tired all the time, numb, like I was stuck in someone else's life. Friends stopped calling as often. My parents tried to stay upbeat, but I saw the sadness in my mother's eyes every time she looked at me. She kept asking, "Do you want me to call Ethan's mom? Just to talk?" And I'd always say no. Because Camilla said it would make me look desperate, and heaven forbid I come off as desperate, right? She had a rule for everything. How long to cry, what to delete, who to avoid. She made me feel like she was the only one left on my side. I didn't know, not yet, that Ethan was hurting too. That he'd been ghosted just like I had. That he thought I had pulled away. That I'd vanished without warning. I didn't know he was holding on to the same pain I was, thinking it had come from me. We were both trapped in different versions of the same lie, and the one person feeding it to us with calm, caring hands was the one we both trusted most. It had been a few weeks, long enough for the ache to settle into something quieter. Not gone, just dulled around the edges. I was starting to function again, at least on the outside. I'd gone back to work, forced myself to answer texts, even laughed at a stupid meme someone sent me. And that's when it happened. A mutual friend was hosting a dinner party, casual, nothing big, and against every instinct, I said yes. I needed to feel normal again. I had no idea who would be there. I definitely didn't expect him. Ethan was standing near the bar when I walked in. My heart thudded like it recognized him before my mind did. He looked thinner, tired. But when his eyes met mine, something passed between us. Confusion, hesitation, relief. We both froze, and I watched his jaw clench like he was swallowing words. I wanted to run. Instead, I walked straight to the kitchen, pretending I didn't see him. My hands were shaking as I grabbed a drink. What was he doing there? And more importantly, why did part of me still care? Later that evening, he found me outside on the patio, alone. The air was cold, but I didn't move when he sat next to me. We didn't say much at first, just sat there, watching the lights twinkle in the distance. Then, almost at the same time, we spoke. "Why did you stop talking to me?" he asked. I blinked. "You dumped me over text," I said. We stared at each other, both trying to make sense of what the other just said. That's when the unease kicked in, hard and fast. Something was wrong. Very, very wrong. We pulled out our phones and started scrolling, comparing dates, times, messages. He showed me the final message he received, one I'd never written. The phrasing was cold, detached. It didn't even sound like me. And when I showed him the breakup text I received, he swore on everything that he never sent it. My hands started sweating. My stomach flipped. The timelines didn't match. The words weren't ours. It was like someone had rewritten the end of our story, while pretending to be both of us. Ethan and I sat there in silence, the weight of realization hanging heavy between us. My heart was pounding, not from heartbreak this time, but from something else. Something colder. Betrayal. Not his, not mine. Someone else had stepped into our story, wearing our words like costumes. "Who would do that?" he asked, and I didn't answer right away. I was trying to piece it together. Who had access to both our phones? Who had been there with me when I was too broken to notice? Camilla. The name came like a whisper I didn't want to hear. I felt a chill crawl up my spine as memories surfaced. How she had encouraged me to delete threads, how she'd taken my phone out of my hands for my own good. She was the only one who had been around both of us during those final days. She knew his schedule, my passcode, everything. I didn't say her name out loud, not yet, but the pieces were moving inside me, quietly, reluctantly. I didn't want it to be her. God, I didn't. Ethan must have seen it in my face. "Who are you thinking about?" he asked. I stared at the ground, unsure how to respond. My fingers gripped the edge of the patio chair. "There's only one person who knew everything," I said finally. "One person who never left my side, who told me you walked away, who told me not to reach out again." His eyes widened. He looked like he was putting it together too. And just like that, the silence between us shifted, from confusion to suspicion. I left the party before it ended, my mind spinning. Everything suddenly felt tainted, the tea she brewed, the tissues she handed me, even the way she hugged me. Was it all calculated? Or worse, was it easy for her? I drove home with the windows down, the wind loud in my ears trying to drown out the thoughts. I wanted to believe there was still another explanation, that I was wrong. But deep down, a part of me already knew the person I had cried to was the one who made me cry in the first place. That night, I barely slept. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, watching the shadows move like waves. My thoughts wouldn't stop looping. Every compliment Camilla ever gave me now felt loaded, like it came with a hidden agenda. I remembered the way she looked at Ethan when she thought I wasn't paying attention. The way her face would go blank when he complimented me in front of her. I had brushed it off as awkwardness. I see now it was resentment, slow burning and quiet. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I opened my old email backups, cloud accounts, even my service provider's message logs. I needed proof, something solid to chase this awful gut feeling. And there it was. A sent message, time-stamped the night before Ethan's text from my phone, while I was asleep. Words I never typed, tone I never used, cold, cutting lines saying I didn't love him anymore. My blood ran cold. It was real, and she had done it. I thought about confronting her right then, storming into her apartment, throwing the proof in her face. But something stopped me. Camilla wasn't just some random ex-friend. She was sharp, calculated. She had built this lie carefully, and if I wanted to take it down, I'd have to be smarter than she thought I could be. So instead, I smiled when she texted that afternoon asking how I was feeling. "Better," I replied. "Stronger every day." And that wasn't a lie. It just wasn't the whole truth. Because beneath the surface, something inside me had changed. The fog had lifted. My grief had a name now. And it wasn't Ethan's. It was hers. And I wasn't going to cry about it anymore. I was going to do what she never expected. I was going to stay quiet, stay close, and gather every piece I needed to burn her lie to the ground. After all, the friend who zipped me into my dress was the same one who stabbed me in the back. Now it was my turn to pick up the knife. I didn't scream. I didn't confront. I didn't even flinch when I saw Camilla 2 days later, walking into my apartment with a bag of groceries and that same warm smile. "Thought I'd make you lunch," she said, like she hadn't rewritten the course of my life. I nodded, acting grateful. If she noticed the way my voice had sharpened at the edges, she didn't let on. That was the thing about Camilla. She believed she was always one step ahead, and maybe she was. Until now. While she chopped vegetables, I asked her about old memories. I laughed at her stories. I even let her post a photo of us on her Instagram, a filtered version of best friendship, but inside I was mapping it out. Every word she said, every twitch in her expression, every time she looked down at her phone when she thought I wasn't watching. I wasn't going to play fair. I was going to play smarter. Because the girl who cried into her lap was gone. The woman sitting across from her was something new. A few days later, I staged a reconciliation moment with Ethan. We met for coffee, chose the cafe Camilla always drove past on her way to work. I leaned across the table laughing, touching his arm like we were falling back in love. And sure enough, Camilla saw us. She didn't say anything that day, didn't even text. But later that night, she showed up at my place without warning. "So, you and Ethan again?" she asked, trying to keep her tone light. Her smile was there, but her eyes had changed. I nodded and poured her tea like everything was normal. "We've been talking," I said. "Maybe there's still something worth saving." I could see the twitch in her jaw, that little crack in her mask. She nodded slowly, eyes flicking around the room like she couldn't quite settle. "I just want what's best for you," she said. And I believed her, just not in the way she meant it. Because what she thought was best for me was a life without him, and what I thought was best for her. A taste of exposure. I started planting seeds. Subtle ones. I mentioned how Ethan and I had been revisiting our old messages, comparing dates, laughing about the mix-ups. I watched her carefully with each word. She sipped her tea a little too fast. "That must have been awkward," she said, forcing a smile. I tilted my head and shrugged. "It actually cleared up a lot of things," I said. That silence that followed, it wasn't confusion. It was calculation. She was recalibrating, trying to figure out what I knew and what I didn't. The next morning, I called Ethan. "It's time," I told him. We agreed on a plan, simple, quiet, undeniable. I invited Camilla over that evening for a girls' night, and she showed up right on time, wine in hand, still dressed from work. I told her Ethan had been messaging again. "It's weird," I said, pretending to be unsure. "Sometimes I wonder if I made a mistake." She didn't even blink. "You didn't," she said flatly. "You were lucky to get out when you did." There it was, a hint of bitterness, a glimpse of the truth. I let her talk. Let her say more than she should have. I nodded when she hinted that Ethan had always been a little off. I even offered her my phone under the guise of reading an old text. And when she said, "I did you a favor," it came out so casually I almost missed it. But my phone didn't. It was recording everything, every word, every smug pause, every self-satisfied sigh. I kept my face neutral, but my heart was racing. She had no idea she'd just handed me the key to everything she thought she'd buried. Later that night, I uploaded the audio to a shared drive, sent it to myself, to Ethan, to a few very carefully selected friends. I didn't need to scream or accuse. I didn't even need to call her out, because the next step wasn't about confrontation. It was about exposure. It was about making sure that for once, Camilla didn't get to control the version of the story that people heard. I was done being quiet. I was done being careful. She had pulled the plug on my happiness. Now I was flipping the switch. The next day, the audio started to spread. Slowly at first, like a secret passed in whispers. Our closest friends heard it. Ethan's sister heard it. Even my florist texted me. "Is that really Camilla's voice?" I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The truth was doing its work, peeling away the image she had spent years perfecting. People listened to her words, her tone, the way she spoke about me like I was weak, clueless, disposable. She had wrapped her betrayal in silk and sweetness. Now, everyone saw the rot underneath. I didn't post a name. I didn't point fingers. All I did was share a cryptic message on my profile. Sometimes the snake is the one fixing your crown. It was enough. Comments flooded in. Some subtle, some furious, some silent. Just people pulling away from her, unfollowing, not returning messages. I watched in real time as her grip slipped. Camilla had built her whole world on appearances, and I had just cracked her mirror wide open. She called me that night, twice, left voicemails. "We need to talk. There's a lot of confusion going around." I didn't answer. What would I even say? That she'd been caught? That the voice she used to tear me down had become her undoing? No. I stayed silent. Not out of fear, but power. Let her feel what I felt. Let her scream into silence and wonder how everything she controlled had slipped out from under her. Revenge didn't need a dramatic finale. It just needed a moment like this. And just like that, the woman who wanted to ruin my wedding got her invitation. Not to the one she planned, but to her own downfall. No music, no flowers, just truth, served cold. And me, standing right where she never thought I'd be again, in control. But I wasn't finished yet. Because some endings deserve more than silence. They deserve a twist. The fallout was swift. People distanced themselves from Camilla like her name had turned toxic overnight. Invitations stopped coming. Mutual friends stopped replying. Her carefully curated life, the one full of brunches, compliments, and performative kindness, started crumbling piece by piece. I heard through someone that she lost a freelance contract the same week. Another friend said she'd been crying in her car outside the gym. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. This wasn't revenge dressed in rage. This was balance, finally restored. Ethan and I started talking again. Really talking. We didn't rush anything. We met in quiet places, not restaurants or crowded cafes, but parks, bookstores, that little pier where he first told me he loved me. There was pain to sift through, distrust to heal. But there was also something deeper than before, a shared grief, a mutual betrayal that we didn't cause but had survived together. We laughed again. We argued too. But now, when we spoke, there was nothing in between us. No ghost, no interference, just truth. Eventually, we made a choice. Not for the spectacle, not for the guest list or the photos, just for us. We decided to get married. No fanfare, no bridesmaids. Just a simple ceremony by the water, with our hands held tight and no one else directing the narrative. My dress wasn't designer. His suit didn't match the Pinterest board I once obsessed over. But it was ours, honest, raw. And when we said our vows, I didn't think once about what we lost, only about what we fought to reclaim. A few days later, I posted a photo. Just one. No caption. It was us, barefoot on the sand, smiling like we knew a secret no one else did. I didn't tag anyone. I didn't need to, because I knew exactly who would see it. Camilla wasn't blocked. I made sure of that. Letting her watch was the last page in the chapter she tried to write without me. And that was the beauty of it. She'd faked a message to end a wedding. I sent one back, not with words, but with the life she never got to take away. Camila never responded to the photo, not publicly anyway, but I saw her name in the story views. Twice. The second time she lingered longer, maybe waiting for a caption that never came. There was something delicious about that silence. Not cruel, just full. The kind of silence that says, I see you. I know what you did. And I'm still standing. I wondered if she felt regret, or if her pride still convinced her she had done the right thing. Honestly, it didn't matter anymore. The performance was over. The audience had left. I began rebuilding my life without the weight of her shadow. Every time I picked up my phone, I didn't have to second-guess who was listening. Every time I made a plan, it was mine. I stopped apologizing for being happy. I stopped shrinking to make others feel bigger. It's strange how much space betrayal can take up, and how free you feel when you finally clear it out. I wasn't interested in revenge anymore. I was interested in peace, in privacy, in choosing who got a seat at my table, and who didn't. People asked me later if I ever confronted her face to face, if I gave her the dramatic takedown she deserved. But that's the thing about people like Camilla. They don't crumble with confrontation. They thrive on it. They twist it. So I gave her nothing. No call, no closure, just silence and a front row seat to the life she failed to steal. Let her fill in the blanks. Let her wonder which moment she lost control. Because I knew. It was the second she believed I couldn't live without her. And maybe that's the real twist. Not that she got caught, not that she lost, but that I never needed to fight her the way she fought me. I just had to stop letting her stand in the middle of my story. She forged a message once to destroy me, but the one I sent back? It didn't need words. It was in the way I smiled, the way I moved on, the way I let her watch it all unfold, helpless, speechless, and completely uninvited. It's funny how people show you who they are when they think you'll never stop loving them. Camilla believed I was too soft, too trusting, someone she could quietly dismantle without consequence. And maybe for a while, I was. But grief teaches you things. It sharpens your vision. It burns off illusions. And when the smoke clears, you start to see the people around you for who they really are. Not who they pretended to be in matching robes and shared selfies. I don't miss her. Not the real her. I miss the version I thought she was. The best friend who would zip up my dress and cry happy tears with me on my wedding day. That version never existed. It was just another story she crafted, like a mask she wore long enough to be trusted. And once I stopped clinging to the fantasy, I found something better than closure. I found freedom. And that's the kind of peace no one can fake, forge, or take from you. Ethan and I still talk about what happened, but not often. We don't need to. We've built something stronger in the aftermath, not in spite of what we endured, but because of it. The lies didn't break us. They revealed what was real. And when you know who's in your corner, not just when it's easy, but when it's hell, you don't waste time on those who left you bleeding. You protect what matters. You move forward. And you remember who tried to hold the knife. Camilla forged a message to end a wedding. She sent it thinking I'd never recover. That I'd cry, collapse, disappear. And maybe that's the worst part for her now, knowing I didn't fall apart. I rose, I healed, and in the end, I sent a message too. Not with words, not with fire, just one perfectly timed moment. A photo, a silence, a life rebuilt, a story she couldn't rewrite.